about inheritance in chapter 2. Just as a little review from last time, we had class inherits from another class inherits on and on and on, all the way up to the top. Yeah, the superclass of all superclasses. Sorry, directly or indirectly. Sorry? Yeah, what's the class at like the top of inheritance hierarchy? The superclass, yeah. What's the superclass? Any class go back far enough in the chain of inheritance, you're going to end up with. Which, sorry? Double and? Error? I think I heard you, yeah. What is it again? Oh, okay, well, sort of, okay, sort of, yeah. Sort of, yeah. Yeah, has something to do with the okay, it's either the direct superclass of every class or an indirect superclass if it has like if there's a whole chain of inheritance. Yeah. Sorry? Wait, well, from object. Uh-huh. Yeah, so object is actually a class in Java, even though don't confuse it with the fact that we make our own objects based on classes. But the class that is at the top of the chain of inheritance for every single class is object. And it is in the java.lang package. You're exactly right. So java.lang, that's like the superclass. And it's got a whole bunch of methods the object class does. So those get inherited by any subclass. And here we had an example from last time. Maybe it's a little different, but I think it's the same idea. So we've got an array list, and in lines 4, 5, and 6, which have a little light bulb in them, we have 3 objects being created. A year object of the integer class, a name object of the string class, and a price object of the double class. So those 3 objects are all instances of different classes. Here's an array list, and it's an array list of objects. So that's being declared in line 8. And then in line 10, the add method of the ArrayList class is being called passing in year, which is an integer object, name, which is, bless you, a string object, and price, which is a double object. Pretty interesting, right? Because the ArrayList is an ArrayList of objects, yet we're passing in subclasses of objects. Maybe direct or maybe indirect subclasses, but you know, classes that are derived from object. And then in lines 14 through 16, we just print out what's in the list. But again, we've got this object reference obj that's going to take on, you know, the year instance, which is an integer, name instance, which is a string, and price instance, which is a double. So objects from 3 different classes, and these are the wrapper classes that we learned about in chapter 9. Objects from 3 different classes being referenced by using a superclass reference, a reference to object. So here it's an array list of objects, and here object is being used to take on the different you know, objects, the different instances in that array list. So section 10.7, polymorphism. Superclass reference and a subclass object. Here we have an example, or like kind of more examples. So polymorphism, aiming a superclass reference at a subclass object. And if we think of the classes animal and beetle, which would be the superclass and which would be the subclass? Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Thanks, Pauline. So animal would be the superclass, beetle would be a subclass. And so we know it's perfectly fine to say animal A equals new animal. Totally fine. We know it's fine to say beetle B equals new beetle. But what if we aimed a superclass reference, A, so a reference of the animal class, to a superclass object, beetle. So new beetle is going to carve out a space in memory for a beetle object. So what if we aimed a superclass reference, A, from animal to a subclass object, this new beetle object being created here? Well, that would be polymorphism. Here's another example, quadrilateral Q equals new rectangle. So all rectangles are quadrilaterals, but there are other quadrilaterals that aren't rectangles. So here's a superclass quadrilateral and a reference Q, and that superclass reference Q is being aimed at that subclass object, a new rectangle. And here's our example from, well, actually this is an example not from before, an example that we should go through here. So we've got a package called Polymorphism, and these notes, by the way, they're available in Blackboard, but I'm pretty sure that this particular example is not in the Blackboard one, so you might want to write this down. So here's our polymorphism package, and I'll just put it in NetBeans and let's kind of talk about it from NetBeans. So our polymorphism package is going to have a graded activity class with a private double instance field called score, and then a setter and getter for that instance field, and then a method called getGrade that returns a char that's like the letter grade based on the score. So like, 60D, 70C, 80B, 90A. There's our graded activity class. Let's change the name of this file, right, so that they match the .java file. Let's call it graded activity. And I'll close object demo for last time. And then let's add a new class. So I'll just go file, new file, and then Java class. And let's get the next one. Pass-fail activity. And so it's in the same package, but it's a different class. It's pass-fail activity. And what is its superclass? Just like the direct superclass. Yeah, graded activity, exactly, awesome, cool. So we've got our extends keyword and then graded activity to make this a subclass of graded activity. Nice. Cool, thanks, Kathleen. That's right. There's a private instance field in pass-fail activity that's the minimum passing score. And there's also this constructor that takes in that minimum passing score. And this is interesting. There's also a getGrade method in pass-fail activity. But there was a getGrade method, and the parameter list is important too. There was a getGrade method with the same signature, so that means the same name and parameter list, getGrade with an empty parameter list, as in the superclass graded activity. Same name, same parameter list. And so getGrade in the pass-fail activity class overrides getGrade in the graded activity class. So that's what it means to override a method, is when the subclass has a method with the same signature as a superclass. And the tag for an overridden method, you don't need it, but it's just good to have it in there to make things like more official, is at override. So right before the method that is overriding a superclass method, at override. Same name and parameter list. Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, overriding in general, a method in the subclass has to have the same name and parameter list as the superclass. Close. Actually, overloading means that you have two methods in the same class with the same name but different parameter lists. So like so they're slightly different. Yeah, slightly different. If we put in, well, like another constructor maybe, and it had a different parameter list, then we could overload the constructor. Or if we put in another getGrade method that had a different parameter list, but still in pass-fail activity, this class, then those would be overloaded. Yeah, yeah. So overriding is between subclasses, or I mean superclasses and subclasses, and then overloading is within the same class. But it's like kind of a subtle difference. Yeah. And the overridden version of get grade and pass fail activity, um, what it does. Oh, hey, welcome, Kadria. Is it calls the get score method from the superclass, uh, and it sees if that's greater than the min passing score. And if it is, then it returns P for pass, and then otherwise it returns F for fail. So that's like the PF pass fail kind of system there. Yeah. And let's see, we've got other classes as well. So this is a pretty big example. Here is our final exam class. So we'll just go file, new file. Hey, welcome on. Final exam class. And final exam is a subclass of, what does it look like? Graded activity or pass fail activity? Yeah, graded activity. Nice. Awesome. Yeah. And it's got 3 instance fields, num missed and num questions, which are both ints, and then points each, which is a double. And it's got a constructor final exam, which takes in the number of questions and the number of questions missed. And it assigns questions and missed to these 2 instance fields, num missed and num questions. And then also it calculates a numeric score, which is declared in line 18 and then calculated down here in line 25. First, it finds the points each by dividing 100 by the number of questions. And then it calculates the numeric score by multiplying the number of questions missed by the points, each, and then subtracting that from 100. And then here, the set score method is called passing in numeric score. So let's see, if I scroll down, we can see there are only 2 other methods in here, get num missed and get points each. So how come we can call the set score method in this class? Yeah, Reza? Oh yeah, so it's when we look through the methods in this class, there's no set score method, right? It's just not in there. So how do we have access to that? Inheritance, yeah, exactly. We inherited it, yeah. And do you remember which class had set score in it? Kind of a lot of classes going on. Well, we're a subclass of graded activity. So if we go to graded activity, we should expect to find that set score method. And in fact, here it is. Oh, yeah, awesome. Nice. All right. And then now let's go ahead and copy in this class here. Okay. And then this class um, is called Polymorphism, and it is in the Polymorphism package. And let's kind of try to make sense of it based on the subclasses and superclasses that we've seen. Cool. So can someone tell us, yeah, in line 18, what's going on in line 18? Kevin? Oh, yeah, awesome. Creating a new object in memory. Awesome, nice. What kind of object is it? It's an array. Good call. Awesome. And what is the data type of the array elements? Cool. Yeah, it looks like they're going to be graded activities. Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of a trick question, as we'll see. It's kind of a trick question. Because in fact, they're graded activities or subclasses of graded activities. Yeah. But we haven't really seen that yet. But it's kind of setting us up for polymorphism using a superclass reference to refer to a subclass object. So then here, the first element in the graded activity, array called tests. Tests at position 0 is a new graded activity. So that was the superclass. And we're going to set the score of that to 75. So that was the first thing that people did. They had a graded activity and someone got a score of 75. The second test was a pass-fail test. And when this particular student took the pass-fail test, they missed 5 out of the 20 questions. Also, the minimum passing grade is a 60. So putting that all together for a pass-fail exam, we've got 20 questions, 5 wrong, and 60 is the minimum passing grade. And then down here, test at position 2. So that means for the third graded thing they did, it was the final exam. And for this final exam, there were 50 questions, and the student, they missed 12 out of them. 12 questions missed. So here's now test at position 2, and that's a new final exam object. And here are its arguments to the constructor 50 and 12. So yes, it is an array of graded activities, but this is kind of the idea of polymorphism. But those graded activity references are actually in memory. They're pointing to, the first ones of the 3 is pointing to a graded activity object, but the second one of the 3 is pointing to a pass-fail exam object, and the third one of the 3 is pointing to a final exam object. So that's polymorphism, kind of in action there. Cool. Okay, and then this last little bit of polymorphism.java, it just displays the code or the grades. So it's just going to loop through the tests array like we've seen before, and they'll print out tests, test 1, test 2, test 3. Instead of 0, 1, 2, it'll just add 1 to the index to make it more readable. Test 0, someone might come back and say, hey, that shouldn't count. So anyway, yeah, test 1, test 2, test 3. And then the score and the grade. So a lot going on in here. Let's try to run this. Pass-fail exam. Oh, pass-fail activity. I'm sorry. Do you see that I called this pass-fail activity and then this pass-fail exam? So let me change it to match the actual that subclass. And it looks like I called the constructor in a bad way too. Let's see. One new pass-fail activity 2560. Let's see what pass-fail activity had for its constructor. Oh, whoops! It just had minimum passing score. Okay, so it just had minimum passing score. So we should just put in the 60. But then we should probably set its score to whatever it should be. Or maybe we should just make the constructor better. Yeah, let's just make the constructor better. So pass-fail activity looks like we're trying to pass in 25 and 60. So then in pass-fail activity, let's just overload the constructor. Let's see. Let's try to make a new constructor with 25 and 25 and 60. So the questions in school. No, maybe we should just call this superclass method. Sorry, I guess it wasn't all in there already. But maybe we can learn from this. So 25 and 60. Let's say the minimum passing score was 60. And then let's test at position 1. Let's just set its grade. Oh yeah, I'm just trying to add in a pass-fail activity. I think. Oh, you know what? Yep. Thanks for asking that. That just so. I'm so sorry. So, well, okay, maybe we can learn from this. But I thought this was a class. It was the same class, but actually let's see where to go. Pass-fail activity extends graded activity. Activity. Pass-fail activity. Final exam. Final exam. Why are those the same? Oh. Yep. This was probably something that I probably copied the final exam class twice and then forgot to copy the the pass-fail exam class, and I think that's why that was pass-fail exam here. Okay. Oops. Okay. Well, let's see if we can fix this ourselves. Okay. So I think this was the original. Let's just make sure. Pass-fail grade activity. So I just copy this back in. Yeah, I think that must have been what happened. So pass-fail exam. We don't have a pass-fail exam, but we have a final exam. And I think pass-fail exam was a subclass of pass-fail activity. And pass-fail activity was a subclass of graded activity. Okay. So yeah, can anyone think of a way to write a new class called pass-fail exam that will have this 3-argument constructor and would be a subclass of pass-fail activity? So I think what we're missing is just a class here, pass-fail exam. it'll probably be a lot like final exam. This work, and then final exam. Final exam. So we had a constructor, a pass-fail exam, that took in the questions and the missed questions and the double for minimum passing score. And we had our instance fields, num questions, and num miss. And let's see, points each. And then our points each calculation. And then we want to make sure that it extends, what should it extend? Yeah, pass-fail activity, yeah, awesome. Yes. I thought it was all those three. There was in 25 and 60. Questions missed, minimum passing score. Fail exam, activity, passing score. Yeah. Huh. Well, I'm a little stumped, so maybe the best thing to do is to just go back and pass fail exam. It's finding it now, but it's not the right thing. Fail exam. It's missed. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Does anyone see what's going on? Yeah, this doesn't seem quite right. Let's see. Yeah, no. Okay, but maybe the easiest thing to do is to, since I don't have the notes for the pass-fail exam, is to just make tests at position 1. Let's say it was just what should we say it was? Oh yeah, yeah, or like a type of activity, yeah. Graded activity, pass fail activity, and final exam. So maybe just, yeah, pass fail activity. I don't know. Make it a new graded activity. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Okay, and then let's set its score. To be like 70. Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry about that. I I got all confused. So anyway, let's just pretend that there are these three classes: graded activity, pass fail activity, and final exam. And then here's our polymorphism class that's gonna have an array of graded activities, but really only the first two are graded activities. The last one's a final exam, and final exam is a subclass of graded activity. Cool. Sorry, I hate when I do stuff like that. Um, anyway, okay, and then we'll display the grades from those. Pass fail exam. Let's get rid of that. Okay, cool. So this is telling us for the first exam the score was 75, and that's coming from this 75 here. And then for the second two, we've got our 70, and then for our last object, the final exam object, there were 50 questions and 12 missed. So yeah, 76 for that. Cool. So sorry again. Yeah. Any questions about that?